There's no doubt that having cancer changed the course of my life completely. Becoming a life doula was not the dream job I had envisioned growing up, but I am very proud to say that it is an honor and my privilege to be able to do what I do. On top of that, I'm also an end of life doula, grief coach, and educator. So today, I want to elaborate on the different aspects of my so-called life work as I share with you how I was able to use my pain into my purpose, as I stepped into my calling. And if by chance you're here for support, I'm here to cover all the basics so you know you're in the right place. Okay, so allow me to reiterate and lay it out for you. First off, I am a life doula, also known as a cancer coach. Secondly, I extend my services as an end-of-life doula, which caters to matters surrounding death and dying. And lastly, I am a grief coach, educator. I support people who are dealing with loss or even anticipating death. Grief is a state that straddles between life and death. Whenever I explain to people what it is that I do, the typical reaction I get is usually somewhere along the lines of, "Oh wow, that is so morbid," or "dark, scary, sad," etc. So, before anything else, I want to make sure that this is clear, and I say this to everyone. Death and dying are not medical events. They are natural processes of life, very much like birth. I must admit it's not easy doing what I do, but I find comfort in knowing that I am following my mission and my calling. I am very grateful for the opportunity to be a life doula for those seeking support as they navigate through their cancer journey, as I once have. To hold your hand through loss and to guide you through purposeful living amidst the inevitable of dying. Now, I am continuously learning how to support others in their grief a lot better, whether it be through the loss of a loved one, their own cancer diagnosis or terminal illness, or reaching the end of life. I can tell you now that I am steady in the face of that, which wasn't the case before, because I have been there, and until this day, I sit with grief so very often. Between birth and death, there is grief. This is a part of life that spares no one, which is why I pursued to become a grief educator under David Kessler. My work has given me the opportunity to witness the absolute beauty of some of the most awe-inspiring individuals I have ever known. Each one I consider to be an invaluable gift. To make sense of why I believe this is my calling, I have to bring it back to my experience with cancer. To make sense of why I believe this is my calling, I have to bring you back to my experience with cancer. It was the pebble in the pond that started the ripple effect of what I am sure will be the work that I do until I grow old. If you've listened to my first episode, I mentioned that I was diagnosed in January 2016 with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer with bone metastasis all over my body. To date, I'm happy to share with you that I have been cancer-free for 8 years now. Cancer is such a scary word, isn't it? It can strike fear into the hearts of patients and families alike. And I believe it is essential to really recognize that behind that diagnosis is a person with dreams, memories, aspirations, and above all, an inherent worth. When we focus solely on the tumor and not the whole individual, we risk losing sight of the humanity that really connects us all. I strongly advocate the power of choice and our ability to see beyond the disease, which enables us to tailor our approach to each patient's unique needs and wishes. Cancer can be isolating and an overwhelming experience, with countless decisions to make, complex treatments to understand, and the constant specter of mortality looming. I became a life doula to help others navigate through their own experience, offering a listening ear, resources, and personalized strategies for coping with the physical, mental, and emotional toil of each disease. While the medical aspect of cancer treatment is undoubtedly crucial, I believe a patient's holistic state and well-being should not be neglected. While I was undergoing my own treatment, I learned to embrace that I could go anytime and that plan B simply did not exist. So I began building a cancer support community, and my focus on serving others on the same journey kept me going through the most challenging days of my life. When I thought of myself less and began actively supporting other cancer mates, I was not as anxious and I was no longer worried. My own suffering allowed me to find meaning in my story and taught me to be a companion, to hold space for those living with cancer and their loved ones compassionately. I've always said that you can be fearful, scared, and anxious in battling with cancer, but you can never lose hope, not even for a day. Slowly, my mind and heart started to evolve. The hospital became my second home. I found myself just patient watching at the lobby of the hospital where I go, and I found myself saying random prayers for each nameless patient that would come into my view. On other days, I would make it a point to intentionally pass by the outpatient department, or what we refer to as ambulatory department. And really, what I do is I get the names of all the cancer patients who are undergoing treatment, and I pray for them. In time, I began making rounds with doctors and initiating conversations with fellow patients about how they were feeling really. What are they scared of? What keeps them awake at night? These were conversations I felt needed to be heard, which ultimately led me to consider that I was there for a reason. Waking up in the morning is a blessing that many of us take for granted. Every single one of us wakes up with a purpose. I cannot even begin to describe how much more amplified and equally confusing this becomes when you are told that you have mere years, months, or weeks left to live. It wasn't until I faced my mortality that I genuinely began loving myself and intentional living a more purposeful life. I had to make big decisions, major life changes, and my experience with facing death is why I do what I do now. My cancer journey ignited something fierce within. It compelled me to help others more than anything else. I realized my purpose extended beyond myself and embraced it with boundless optimism. I accepted the uncertainty of the future, focusing on building a supportive community and inspiring others to hold on to hope. This acceptance led me to the realization that while there were so many things I had no control over, it was up to me to decide how to deal with what I was going through. Before having cancer, I was very fond of branded watches, luxury bags. However, having a magnetized port on my chest meant I could no longer wear watches. And the large tumor on my right breast kept me from using my luxury bags. I realized that all these material possessions were pointless at that point. Meanwhile, I was meeting people at the hospital who couldn't afford a simple blood test. So what did I do? I sold all of it, all, and decided that the proceeds will go to those who needed help. The propelling idea was if I could make someone feel good today, they could show up tomorrow. The next day would be the same goal. If I can only make them feel good today, they will show up again the day after. Every day is a decision to fight or give up. And I wanted to be the person who could say, one more day, just one more day, and tomorrow, let's try again. Since I began my journey as a life doula, I have served and supported hundreds of cancer patients and their loved ones, all looking for answers and terrified of the uncertainty of what's to come, just as I once had. The question that is most commonly asked is this: what should I do? The fear is so palpable, as you can imagine. But more so, you can hear them clutching to hope that maybe, just maybe, they can brave the storm like I had. I believe my cancer was not a random act of God. I was convinced that it was no longer about me, but more about what I needed to do for others. This is the principle I've chosen to live by. Now, as an end-of-life doula, I've taken this calling a step further by supporting patients and their families in confronting the difficult end-of-life discussions and decisions that cancer often forces us to confront. I continue to work to find ways to ease the fear and anxiety surrounding death, allowing individuals to focus on what truly matters in the final moments. Knowing firsthand what it feels like, it is my desire to preserve the dignity and resilience of those battling cancer or facing a terminal illness. Right now, I want you to be mindful of your reaction to this narrative. If you're feeling resistance or a bit of constriction, I encourage you to allow the tension to fade away. Maybe take a few deep breaths and open your mind and your heart to receive what you need from this hard conversation. Discussing death or the dying process is of profound importance as it allows us to acknowledge the intrinsic nature of our mortality and confront the complexities of the human experience. By engaging in conversations about death, we open the gateway to understanding and compassion, fostering a deeper appreciation for life itself. These discussions offer an opportunity for reflection and self-discovery, reminding us to cherish the precious moments we have now and to live with the intention and purpose. Now is as good time as any to talk about the matters concerning death. This is not about calling death sooner. This is such a myth, but really more about how we can provide support and comfort to those who are facing the end of life, easing fears and really ensuring that the wishes are respected. Let us honor the stories of our loved ones, celebrate their legacy, and create an environment of empathy and understanding. By breaking the silence around death and dying, we build a culture that embraces the full spectrum of human existence. It promotes emotional well-being by being better equipped and prepared. And this enables us to navigate our journey with greater grace and ease. I have seen friends and patients pass away and was told that many of them passed without anyone by their side. I saw patients being persuaded to continue with treatment even if their bodies could no longer handle it. This showed me another side of the system, an absolute lack of dignity in dying. It gave me a stronger resolve to really elevate the experience of dying. As much as the hospital has truly helped me, I feel it is not the best place for someone to die. Because of this, I advocate curating the end of life experience to add warmth and vibrancy in the dying process. It need not be something so sad or so somber nor so clinical to the point that the person should die alone within the four glass panels of the ICU and the humming and beeping of all the machines they are hooked on. I am such a staunch believer that the dying should be around family where they want to be with. They can take charge and be adamant that there is also time to stop and say, I will just let life play out. To me, that is still very much a part of purposeful living. It's defining your total dying experience because it is such a monumental and sacred event. Dying on your own terms is equivalent to taking your power. Define how you want to be cared for. I really encourage all of you, everyone, to make the hard decisions while you still can. How do you want to be cared for when the time comes that you can no longer make all of these decisions? Do you want to get out of the hospital? Do you want to die by the beach? Rent a home by the mountains? Whatever serves you, that's how you should go. I understand that not everyone is ready, but I will continue to drive this conversation forward because I believe it's important that we all learn what it means to brace for the inevitable. Death matters, and so does your experience surrounding it. It is a universal feature of human life, and spoiler alert, it is fated for everyone. Avoiding talking about it does not come with any guarantees. It won't happen. So we may as well be properly informed. Let's start the conversation and change the norm. Okay, and finally, this brings us to the subject of grief. Such a deep, personal, and profound experience. There's no single right way to navigate life after loss, and I cannot tell you what to do. What I can do as a grief educator is offer you hope and direction and empower you to choose the steps you need to take to be able to move forward. I hold space to help you get to know yourself better so you can learn how to do more than just cope with the loss. You will learn how to live fully with your loss because grief is not separate from life, it is part of life. There are plenty of significant losses in life that are not associated with death. Grief can take many forms. Naturally, some are more painful than the others. A loved one's death is irreversible and is usually the most distressing for many. There is the yearning you feel when someone special dies. The anticipatory grief that follows a life-limiting diagnosis, the traumatic grief you feel when someone dies because of mental illness, an overdose, or an act of violence. The ambiguous losses that leave you feeling anxious, such as a loved one with a progressive dementia, a mental health diagnosis, or an estranged family member. And of course, those losses that matter to you but are disregarded and minimized by others because they just don't understand. We are all connected and face collective losses that impacts us as a society and individuals. To heal ourselves, we need to name what hurts, what's painful, and find a way to continue living. You see, grief isn't just about dealing with the aftermath of death. It is also about navigating the turbulent waters of profound changes, transitions, loss, and transformation of lives like empty nesting. It is a universal experience, yet intensely very personal, affecting us as each in a unique way. Based on my experience as a grief coach, most people just really need a safe space and a supportive system to explore their grief, their feelings, and their healing journey. You see, it is about understanding that grief isn't a problem to be solved, but a process to be lived as we work towards unearthing the pain that's often buried deep within. People in grief do not need advice. They need support. I help my clients make sense of all these emotions, which can be so overwhelming at times. We work through the tangle of anger, sadness, guilt, and even shame. And sometimes even relief, because it's essential to remember that all these emotions are valid. I will say it again. There is no right or wrong when dealing with grief. Navigating your grief journey of self-discovery and transformation is beautiful in its own way. It's so easy to forget when we feel so fragmented after a significant loss. I am here to remind you that life, even after losing someone so loved and so dear to us, can still be meaningful and fulfilling. So there you have it. Now I wonder if you've noticed a common thread that ties all of the work that I do together. If you have, let me know. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today on the Life Doula podcast. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. And remember, there's beauty and meaning in even the most challenging moments of life. So until next time, heal strong, have faith, and let's keep the conversation going.